Hi, everyone. My name is Jake Seid, co-founder and general partner of Ballistic Ventures, and have with me today Tarun Thakur, co-founder and CEO of Veza, and we're excited to announce 108 million Series D financing for Veza. Tarun and I got to know each other when I invested in the Series A. Maybe why don't we start with some background on Veza? What is it that Veza does? Why is it so important?
Jake, thank you so much. First, just wanted to thank you and the Ballistic team. It's great to be here. I remember our early days when you, as you noted, we had only three people and four people. You believed in sort of the idea and the mission and the opportunity and sort of what revolutionary and transformational approach that was needed. So, thanks to you. Quickly on Veza, we've spent all of us 2 decades securing the most important asset in our organizations called our data, our employee data, our customer data, third-party data. Whether it was through network, securing the network, or securing the endpoint, which is your laptop, or securing the front door, things like multi-factor. However, as we dug along, the feedback we kept hearing is like, look, in spite of all these tools, we haven't really understand who's Jake and what can he delete in Snowflake. Simple example, right? Which is principle of least privilege. And we found this opportunity, that how can be such a real problem that has not been solved. So, very simplistic mindset of solving a real unsolved problem, which led to our intuition when we did this research, again, back to Veza, which is, people think directories and identity, right? And how fallacy that is, right? Is the conclusion we came to, which is, the purest form of identity is actually in permissions and entitlements. So, really, we're building an identity security company which serves to the needs of multiple use cases like an IGA, like a non-human identity, like a privilege access, so on and so forth.
And there's many identity companies out there. What did you find really allowed Veza to differentiate in the eyes of the market, in the eyes of the customer?
As I reflect on that sort of ability to be able to take building resiliency in an organization or a team, or to building resilient in a startup, is about really just staying close to customers, right? I think that's I know it's a cliche and but I think it's really the core kernel of a startup. Yes, the team is important, yes, the product is important, yes, the technology is important, but I think at the end of the day, fundamentally, are you solving a problem which is available and applicable to lots of masses? I'll just sort of share a story very early on. We started the company in March of 2020. By August, we built a small little MVP. Because we were that level of paranoid, right? We wanted in 6 months to put a simple idea like a visibility and start to put it in front of customers. Our first customer, Barracuda Networks. Our second customer, Robinhood. We had at that time nothing. All we had was this thought of a data model realized as a graph, because we were that level of, if I can use the word, fanatism, that look, we want to really get validation before we go too far. We're two connectors or two integrations, simple visibility layer. But the feedback we're looking for is, look, not only can it not solve the problem today, but also the extensibility of this problem set, right? The extensibility of the data model. So I think back to your point of customers, I think just iterating very fast. We try to be in the front of customers, if not every week, every 2 weeks. Our first year of real revenue, 2022, we were on a milestone, right? The first million, as you said, the first million of ARR, and we were on a milestone of the first million of ARR. And one of the customers said, look, I'm really happy we're partnering, but you have so much more opportunity. And I said, what will we have to build to go from a dollar to $5? And he said, this is the sequence you need to go. And till date, 5 years, we've been just following that sequence. And I think that's, sort of the intellectual honesty, listening to customers, being dispassionate, and not getting too hung up. The speed of iteration is learnings that I think I've had. Just last week I was in Michigan, my first time at Grand Rapids, and I was with the CISO of a $50 billion company. He was like, look, let me show you how we're operationalizing Veza. To me, those are the best moments of this journey because you're learning. You're sitting with a $50 billion CISO who's showing you on his laptop how he's operationalizing and what does he need.
You got to engage the market, right? You start with kind of a core nugget, but unless you engage the market, you're not going to be able to iterate. And so better to engage the market sooner rather than later. And, I think about an old saying that, live by, which is ready, shoot, aim. You just have to get out there. Customers have a problem today, but when they engage with a new vendor, they want to know you can solve multiple problems over the course of a long relationship. People don't want 10 different vendors to solve 10 different problems. And so I think, something interesting you mentioned was you had a roadmap that people wanted to partner on. It wasn't just, what you solved today, but they saw where you were going. And based on where you were going, they said, this is a long-term relationship, we want to be in with Veza. And with that, then they helped guide that roadmap. And so I think that's a very powerful lesson for startups. Let me switch gears. We talked about, kind of what the company does and how you did it. Let's talk about early on, as a leader, what was most important in getting your first million or couple million of ARR?
I'm very grateful to my first 6 years of my first entrepreneurial journey, because it taught me everything. It taught me so much, how to build a product, how to engage the market, work with a team, how to build a leadership team, so on and so forth. So I think I would say, a few things I would sort of share, which I think were very critical for our journey. I think it's very important from the first employee you hire to the 10th employee that you hire, that first 6, 12, 18 months is really to keep iterating the vision, right? The pillars, if I can, or people also like to call it the Act 1 and the Act 2 and the Act 3. And I remember early days we used to actually do 2 stand-ups in a day, morning and afternoon, because again, also it was a time of COVID, so we had to adapt how to live in the old world, in the new world. And so, I would say, and when I go back and talk to our sometimes our founding engineers, they're like, look, that vision that you kept pounding on or kept sharing was very motivating and inspiring for us as an engineers, that it's not just the first pillar, we also have the third pillar ahead of us. And at that time, you really don't know actually what will go in those pillars, right? You because you don't know all the answers. So I think one is deep level of just the market engagement, but also, team engagement, having that North Star of what the pillars are that you want to go build.
And as you look back, what advice would you give to your younger self as you've grown as a leader?
I think I would start with, things that I reflect back and things I remind myself. I think number one is the power of patience. I think, look, nothing is built in 1 year, nothing is built in 6 months, nothing is built in 1 year. What I mean by built is of substance, of value, of enduring, resilient nature. If that is the mission, then you have to be patient. I think number two is again, this sounds cliche, but the list of the lists is the word I use, the list of the checklist. Look, we every Sunday till today, every weekend, me and my co-founders make a list. Here are the 20 things we need to do, and we prioritize that list. We call it brutal BPM, brutal prioritization meeting. That's the meeting on our calendars every Sunday. Brutal prioritization meeting. and because you cannot do it all, right? So you have to have that sequencing prioritization mindset. So I think that's been very critical for me. Cannot do it all. You want to do it all, but you cannot. Just something you have to realize. And that is again
alignment across the organization. Everybody knows what the priorities are.
And Jake, you've been big a personal coach for me and a mentor, which is you're only as good as the team. You're only as of elite player as your team is. And these are your words. I'm just repeating back to you, which they have had a deep impact on I would say my growth. So which has been phenomenal. And I cannot go build, we cannot go build, we want to build a public institution. I think we can. And it's going to be with the team that has to come together.
Let's talk about what's next for Veza. What's your vision over the next couple of years?
Thank you, Jake. Look, we with Veza, we our end state in mind is we want to build a next generation identity platform. As I said early on, people think directory is identity. That's a very, it comes across, it may come across provocative, but I cannot tell you how much customers are aligned with that vision. That directory is certainly not the identity. And so, on that, we have built 6 products today. We call it both the lanes of visibility and the lanes of IGA. So 2 lanes for the security and the identity persona. As we think of sort of the next year, sort of we think of roadmap in short term and long term. Short term is 12 months, long term is 2 years. You cannot think beyond 2 years. There are 3 core focus areas of where we want to take Veza. Number one, IGA, as we all know, has a space which has not seen innovation, in our humble opinion. Yes, there's a lot of incremental improvements, but not a revolution or not a transformation. So I think we believe we have a transformative approach. So we want to keep doubling down on that lane. Second is we want to open, again, back to your point of platform. Our customers are asking us to go solve problems, privilege access in the cloud, third-party access, non-human identities. We took all sort of multiple focus areas in the roadmap to go solve customer problems, which are very much tied back to permissions and entitlements. And the third is, I think how big the cloud and SaaS was disruptive. I think AI is even a bigger disruptive. I know again, a lot of has been said, but I think beyond copilots, right? Copilot was good. We get a notification, but we cannot interact with the notification, right? So if that world is the agentic AI world, meaning 2 agents working together, the only common glue between those 2 agents is identity. And so the third focus area is around fundamentally refounding, is the word I use, what the impact of agentic AI will be to our platform, to our use cases, to our products.
Well, Tarun, congratulations again on the 108
Thank
million
you, Jake.
Series D. We're so excited to continue the journey together, and thanks for sharing your wisdom today.
Jake, thank you so much. You've been a true partner, as I call you, the MVP of the cap table, most valuable player. You work as hard as a founder does. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tarun.